allow us to look at what's been laid before us with an ability to be able to not only see what's best for our community, but to see what's best for everyone involved. Lord God, I just praise you that with you being the center and the one who leads us in the directions that we need to go, the decisions that we will make will be based on something more than just our own desires. Lord God, I ask that you bless this commission with an additional amount of unity and an ability to be able to see the best in all things and to look for ways beyond and above to do what's best for the citizens of our community. Help us to be, Lord God, stewards of what has been entrusted to us and make the best decisions possible based upon that. We give you all the glory, Lord God. We ask that you bless our community. We ask that you bless our city. We ask that you be with our first responders, firemen, police, the EMT, and all the others, Lord God, who help protect us and protect those around us. We ask that you would continue to be a blessing to each and every one of us as we go forward this evening and into the rest of this year. In Jesus' holy and precious name we pray. Amen.
I'll make a motion to approve the new agenda.
Did we get the minutes corrected for the dates of the meetings and everything?
You mean for the rescheduled meeting?
Right.
I don't think it's in the current.
It's not in the current minute.
I do not believe
No.
so. But I will check.
I had a question, Josh, on the bidding. I know you've got the bidding. Do you want to keep on the consent agenda, or should we keep that on or take that off? The depositories, if that changes, or keep it at, go ahead and approve it, and then it could be modified?
Why would you, why did you want to take it off?
Well, I'm asking,
I think it's because it's an agenda item.
Oh, yeah.
Later down
Yeah.
the list, so if we approved it now, then there wouldn't be
Yeah.
any discussion or anything,
Yeah, I would,
with the exception of that item.
yeah. Yeah, with that.
I'll second Josh's motion.
Consent of the agenda, not the consent of.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, just the, well, that'll be next, because usually we don't do approval of the agenda, but since it's changed, yeah, we just want to, so it's just approval of the agenda as presented.
Right. Okay.
Matthew seconded it.
Okay. So Tim Van Hookey,
Yes.
Matthew Wells,
Yes.
Edwin Woolhoff,
Yes.
Josh Jones,
Yes.
Katie Harrington.
Yep. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, removing item I, because it's on the agenda discussed today, or it's on the actual agenda later on, so.
That's the resolution number 2-20023.
Yep. Second.
Matthew Wells,
No.
Edwin Woolhoff,
Yes.
Josh Jones,
Yes.
Tim Van Hookey,
Yes.
Katie Harrington.
Next is the reorganization of city commission.
I'll make a motion to I'll make a motion to appoint Matthew Wells as mayor.
Is there a second?
Can I second that? I'm just asking. All right, I'll second it.
All right.
Any discussion?
Okay. All right. So Edwin
Oh,
Woolhoff.
hang on, wait, did we open this for discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I would like to ask what's prompting this, or we're talking about,
Every year, we can restructure the city officials, the roles, so that we can appoint different individuals to be mayor. So that way, change it or keep it the same.
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, we vote on this, the newspaper, our designated our newspaper. Just a few things
The
at the beginning of
different-
each year.
Different advisory
boards.
boards.
this is just par for the course procedure that we
Yeah.
do at the beginning
Yeah.
of every year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, first meeting of the years, there's a list of things that usually get voted on or whatever.
That's why it's probably cracking. Thank you.
Okay, we're ready to vote. Okay. Edwin Woolhoff,
Yes.
Josh Jones,
Yes.
Tim Van Hookey,
Yes.
Matthew Wells, Katie
I'm
Harrington.
gonna vote no. Okay,
Well, at this point, you lose your
I
spot.
lose it. You get to go, sir.
You have
wanna
to
stay
sit
here?
next to me for a year now.
Do I have to move up there? Can I stay?
You can move wherever you want.
I'm gonna
I
stay-
sat there whenever I got
Okay,
voted
I'll
in.
stay right here.
Okay.
All right, we'll move on to the second reorganization, the commission president.
I'd like to nominate Tim Van Hookey for commission president.
I would second that.
Josh Jones. Yes. Tim Van Hookey,
Yes.
Matthew Wells,
Yes.
Edwin Woolhoff,
Yes.
Katie Harrington.
No.
Next, we'll look at the Bourbon County Ready representative. I would like to motion that Josh continue as that representative unless he has a
I would,
problem with it.
I would actually, I think it'd be good to rotate or switch. I
Okay.
mean, I've done it the last 2 years, so.
Yeah. That's
I have to excuse myself from that position.
I would nominate Tim Van Hookey for Bourbon County Ready representative.
I'd second it.
And Katie, you're abstaining from this?
No, I just couldn't be a representative.
Oh.
I can
okay.
vote on.
Gotcha, okay. All right. So Katie Harrington,
Yes.
Edwin Woolhoff,
Yes.
Tim Van Hookey,
Yes.
Josh Jones.
Yes.
Matthew Wells.
Yes. Next, we'll need a land bank representative. Tim has been the land bank representative up to now.
We're finally starting to move a little bit.
That's right. But does anyone have a desire to change that? I know that Tim's been quite involved in it.
I would like to be considered for it, just,
I would nominate Josh Jones for the position of land bank manager or land bank advisory member.
I would second that.
Okay. All right. Josh Jones,
yes.
Tim Van Hookey,
Yes.
Edwin Woolhoff,
Yes.
Katie Harrington,
Yes.
Matthew Wells.
Yes. Next, we have the Fort Scott Housing Authority delegate. I believe we should give that to the new guy. I would motion for Edwin Wolhoff to be our Housing Authority delegate.
I would second that.
Josh Jones?
Yes.
Tim Van Hookey?
Yes.
Edwin Woolhoff?
Yes.
Katie Harrington?
Yes.
Matthew Wells?
Yes.
I would move to nominate Katie Harrington as the Lake Advisory Board representative.
I would second that.
Edwin Woolhoff?
Yes.
Katie Harrington?
Yes.
Josh Jones?
Yes.
Tim Van Hookey?
Yes.
Matthew Wells?
Yes. Then I believe by default, I will be appointed to the library board.
Learn how to read.
Yes, sir.
Matthew, they met tonight. They met tonight.
Gosh, next land bank meeting is Monday.
Next Monday.
I'll get with you before then.
They'll send you.
Yeah. Because there's one coming up.
Okay. On Saturday.
Heads up. All right, next item on the agenda is the public comments. Did we have anyone sign up for that, Lisa?
Kevin Allen?
Kevin. Nice to see you. How's Aunt Toadie's going?
I would tell you, but I'd have to pay a fine to Josh because every time I mention it, it costs me on the podcast. So I will plead the fifth on that. I think it's going good. I got to get back there as soon as possible because they were slammed when I came by, and I don't want to take a chance of getting rode up. So that's what I'm here to talk about tonight. Was we purchased that little restaurant over there. It's going really good. We're doing a lot of remodeling, unless people from the county are listening, and we're not really doing that much. But anyway, we're doing a lot of stuff to make the place a lot nicer on the east side. It's one of the few places on the east side. Well, it's the only place as far as a restaurant. But not asking for anything major. But I've been visiting with your city assistant city manager, or whatever Brad's title is today. And in the alley, it's been let go for several years. And the people have figured out how to navigate the alley by making it several S curves back and forth over the potholes and trees and things that have grown out into the alleyway. After talking to Brad, we did get some gravel over there to fill in some of the potholes, which I was very happy about. But now we have trees that have grown out past the utility poles. There's probably 3 or 4 trees that are growing out into the alley, and that's why they're making the S curve to get around it. Those trees need taken down, not only for my sake and for the customer's sake, but for the city's sake. We don't need trees growing in utility easements and alleyways. And I understand that it's been that way for years, and I'm not asking for it to happen overnight, but I'd like to get it done as soon as possible because of the improvements we're making. I would like the city to keep up with what we're doing. The other thing I didn't realize until I was visiting with Larry and Mary Jane in getting ready to purchase the business is that there's a tree that was planted approximately 10 years ago in the easement as well. When they have Arbor Day, or I believe that's what it's called, when they come around and plant all the trees, they put a beautiful tree out there, but they planted it between the sidewalk and the curb, and they planted it right in front of the Aunt Toadie sign. So it's grown up, it's sprouted up, and it's probably 30, 40-foot tree, and if you're traveling from the west headed east, it blocks the whole sign. You can't see the sign at all, especially when it's in bloom. Right now, you could see it if you look through the limbs or what have you, but the tree needs removed again just because it's in the utility easement. I don't know who planted a tree in the utility easement, but it wasn't a very wise idea.
Are you asking for the permission for you to go ahead and cut that tree down?
No, sir. Nope, I'm not in the business to cut your guys' trees down.
Right.
I would take the firewood if you wanted to stack it up and bring it back to the house, or I would even take it away from the wood part, away from the job. But they're city trees. I mean, they're on city property as far as the alley goes. And
Yes, the alley, I believe we can look into that and see if those trees are on the alley, then we'll take a look at it. I know as far as the utility easements go, we'll have to check because my understanding from the way our ordinance is written, that that is a city-owned, customer, or citizen-maintained area. So the city would technically not be responsible for removing that tree out of the utility easement. That would fall upon whoever the owner of the property would be.
Right, right. I'm glad you brought that up. Just less than a month ago, and you could check with Public Works, and they would tell you, less than a block from there, on that same side of the street, you got Kirkland's Welding, and you have a house beside Kirkland's Welding. A tree fell down. It was approximately probably 50 to 75 feet off the center, probably about 40 feet off the curb. Fell down, was not in the roadway, was not a hindrance to traffic or anything like that. But the very next day, the city went over there and they cut that tree up. They de-limbed it. They hauled it all off and they fixed the property up. So, there's my contradiction. If we're going to do it for one, we've set precedent. Now, this tree hasn't fell down, but it's definitely a hindrance. And I talked to the property owner beside, to the west of Aunt Tody's, and to make sure that it wasn't something he had planted and he was in love with. He said he didn't even really know it was there.
Are there
So-
distribution lines on that side of the street, or are they on the south side?
They vary down through there, Tim. They used to all be in the center of the
I'm just
road.
curious because I know that Aslan recently has been going through trimming up anything. And
Are you
if
talking
it's-
about high lines?
Yeah.
Okay, when you said distribute, I didn't know whether you were talking about
No, I was talking
utilities.
about electrical lines.
I'm not sure.
Because
I'm
they've
not
been
sure.
in town quite a bit. And I mean, if there's,
They're where?
it's on the south. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I got some pictures of it, but it's pretty. I'll just show you a few pictures. Do you guys want to see a few pictures? There's like the telephone pole. The trees are out in the alley. Well, that's a distant picture.
Yeah, where's the one that's on Wall Street?
Right there.
You're talking about this little tree right here, then?
Mhm.
Yeah, you have to look at the easement on that, Matthew.
It'd be best for me to get with codes and look at the easement
Yeah.
and also go in the alleys and
Check.
see what we can do there. But I'll go over tomorrow and
Okay.
check it out.
Thank you, Brad.
Yeah, I'm not, like I said, I'm not asking for a lot. I'm just telling you, when you have a business and you have a sign, the last thing we want to do is block it. And if that was a tree that was in someone's yard, I'd understand it. But it's in the utility easement. Again, we've had numerous issues with utilities coming down through. They used to be in the center of the road. Now they're not in the center of the road. They've moved a bunch of them. And the alleyway is out of control. So it needs taken down and straightened out to where we can do it.
Okay. Well, we'll have the interim city manager get with codes, and he'll come over there and take a look at everything and verify. If you want to go ahead and cut down that tree, you can do that because it is on your property.
It's not on my property.
It's not on your. It's on the neighbor's property.
Yep, it's on the adjoining neighbor's property.
Okay.
That's why I said, I had spoke with him,
Okay.
and but again, it was. I don't even think he knew it was planted. He said he didn't even know why they came and planted that tree. So they thought there should be a tree there. And go look at it, but I'm telling you, it needs to come down. So that's it.
Is there anyone else signed up, Liz?
Nope, that's it.
We will close the public comments for this evening, and we'll move on to the old business. Ben, do you have a report for us?
I do. So you've got the traditional monthly packets for you. The only thing special this time around is the end of the year. And just to let you guys know, ad valorem taxes, and I'll kind of touch on some of these highlights that are actually in the packet and the narrative. Ad valorem taxes came in 97% of budget. Overall revenue for the general fund is 4%. I'm sorry, 4% lower than budget. And most of that is because of the transfer of sales tax over to street and highway. The general fund, and understand when I say this, the public needs to understand that there are significant capital projects the city contemplates and has just spent an hour and a half talking about those projects. General fund came in with a surplus of $412,000 for the year. The Water utility is $595,000 in surplus. Wastewater utility is $5.8 million in surplus that is related to ADM's revenues coming in. And then the stormwater utility is a deficit of 11,000. None of that really surprised us, as when we got here, we started forecasting that revenue. We were off around $12,000 to what we thought would end the year. That's, I think, the closest we'd ever been. Understand, last year for the general fund, it was a surplus to $259,000. So what we do from here is take those numbers and develop a 23 forecast, update your budget from your 23, since you adopted a budget in the summertime of 22 without any recognition, or thanks to the state of Kansas, without any knowledge of what the year is going to end. We'll go and update the forecast for 23 and bring that back. Typically in April is what we'll do, is bring that back. The reasons the general fund was at a surplus is obviously the typical underspent of the budget for expenses, but primarily because of a 7% increase in sales tax citywide, which was fairly consistent throughout the year. So that's the general fund, and some of the other highlights of those funds. You've got some information in front of you. Obviously, you can go through those at your own leisure. Those include franchise fees, which come in higher than what it was last year as well. And like I mentioned, sales tax. That's what I have for the financial overview. You do have another document in front of you I'd just like to point out. It's a separate packet, and the top of it, you'll have a block it's a black block that has a fund structure, Fort Scott fund structure. And what I wanted to point out, this is nothing that would change immediately. Something that we would recommend is a collapse of certain funds, not ruining any kind of transparency. It's just for efficiency's sake, for what Devin does and what the city does for paying bills and budgeting. Right now, the city's got around 54 funds, separate funds. What we're suggesting is collapse some of those. What you've got in the third page of that packet is where those collapses would take place. Grant funds, we could collapse those into one grant fund, but separate those out as sub-funds so you still see what the grant totals were along with cash. That wouldn't change at all. Your capital improvements fund, you've got a number of capital projects. We would actually turn those into, again, sub-funds, so you see the capital projects, revenue coming in, revenue going out, whatever's left over. In the state of Kansas, it allows you to be able to collapse some of those funds. Some of the other changes they'd make is actually putting the economic development fund in the general fund as a department, and pulling the golf course out of the general fund for a fund on its own by itself. We'd also toyed around with having the Parks and Recreation pull it out of general fund and put it in recreation by itself. The reason I would make those moves is those are unique functions outside of the general fund. It'd also give you an ability to see what revenues or what resources you have. Talking for an hour and a half about equipment, right? That's some of the ways we could start talking about strategy moving forward for golf court paths. If there's donations that are attributable to cart paths or any other function within the golf course. Recreation seems to be that same way too, is pulling those out. So I've got that in front of you. If you guys are okay at looking at seeing what that would look like, we bring our forecast back. What I want to do is just give you what that snapshot might look like. And I'll give you some high overview financial statements of what it would look like, how we would track it. That'd be around March and April. Just one of those things that would help clean some of the items up we've discovered. Any concerns with that piece right there? We want to make sure we can maintain transparency, though, no matter what we do.
Well, and I agree. And right now, I mean, I'm pretty happy with the services you guys are providing, but I kind of like the transparency for the moment anyway, to get it down to the granular level to see how things go for a couple of months here before I would. And I agree with you. I mean, keep it simple, stupid, get rid of some of the
exactly.
clutter that's
Yeah.
out there, but let's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just my opinion that I would be more than willing to look at that.
Okay.
But since we're a brand new relationship here,
Yep.
I'd kind of like to see the dog that I'm used to seeing when I come home.
Not a
before-
problem.
Before that dog looks different.
We
No.
won't die the dog.
Would you be okay with going ahead and pulling the golf course fund out and putting
Yeah.
that as its own fund along with all of the other special revenue funds so that we can see the money going in and out of the golf course?
That's
Yeah,
one
we
I
right
would
now
do.
it's-
I would move that one out of the
Yeah,
general fund.
the golf course, absolutely, I'd be
Yeah.
fine with that.
Okay. We'll make that move then.
Okay.
Bring it back to you.
Yes, sir.
That's all I've got.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Next, we have an update on the progress with codes compliance at 102 South Orton.
Yes. Mr. Mayor, I don't know what Brad has, but I drove by that house myself after the citizen came in here. And since the first time I was there, there is a very large green dumpster that's sitting out there, and it appears as though some progress is starting to be made.
Yes, I would agree.
I mean, it's not salvageable. It absolutely is coming down. But,
Yes.
But
And that's what I've got. Norm Nation in our codes department went over, saw the same dumpster, saw that they were moving things and throwing into the dumpster. So there is some progress going on, and so we'll continue monitoring it and making sure that progression does happen and it doesn't go backwards. And we'll keep watching it.
We did not, I don't remember at this point, did we put a date on when we needed to address that? Did we give her 60 days? Is that what we were looking at?
I think it was 15 days to see some type of
15
action.
to start and
That
then
was-
60 to finish. I
Yeah.
believe.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, Doug Guns with a lake dock locations.
Okay. Well, the docks we ordered are completed and ready for installation. And what I need from you is to tell me where you want it. So the initial RFP that I put together for you had 4 docks in 4 different locations. And I know there's been some discussion as far as where they would go and that kind of thing. So looking for you so that I can call the vendor and tell them where to put them.
And we purchased 2, right?
Yes.
And we were hoping to maybe get grants for the other 2.
Yes.
Any update on the grants?
As soon as the grant lets, for application, I'll come to you and ask for permission to do that.
Okay.
And then the secondary thing that we had talked about was putting the 2 new docks where the current docks are, and then taking those 2 docks and moving them to the other locations where we needed docks.
Okay.
Is everyone still in agreement on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are probably I guess it depends on when we get the other
So-
new ones.
Moving the 2 existing docks, we might incur some costs with that. I'd have to talk to the vendor to say, hey, can you put the 2 new ones there and take the older one somewhere else?
I guess
So-
could you come back or just get that and have Brad shoot us an email of what that might be?
Sure. I just know that the vendor's ready to put them in. So
Right.
Well, if he put the new ones in now and they don't have locations for where the used ones are going at, I mean, what
Right, it would just be a matter of what we did with the old ones until we decided which location.
And where do you keep those at? Just pull them up on shore or something?
We could try.
Yeah.
They're fairly
Could-
sizable, so I'm not sure,
Yeah.
as far as
Could
weight
we-
goes.
We got a big, huge piece of heavy equipment now.
Yeah,
Last that sucker
that's
on
true.
there.
With them, if we could, go ahead and tell them that the locations that we're wanting to put those 2 new
Or
docks
where the
are.
2 existing docks
Yes, sir.
are.
And then ask them how much it would cost if they would have time while they were here, and how much it would cost to move those to the 2 other locations that we discussed, and then send it to Brad, and we can, if we need to.
The reason the vendor was asking was that depending on the locations would determine what size of boat that they would bring to haul them across. So I'd imagine that that's moving the existing docks would be how big they are and where we wanted them and the size of the boat. And
Okay. Yes, sir. So that would be my direction, unless anyone else has anything to say, is that tell them we would like to put those 2 and ask them
Right.
if
Well-
they can bring the boat to move the other docks and how much that would cost.
Right. So with that being said, a location would be ideal. So then I can tell them, okay, well, we want to put the existing docks in these locations. That might help with the pricing. You know, that way they know, okay, well, I have to drive, you know, across the lake, or, you know, they're only going to go 30 feet away, or.
We've got a map up there.
Mhm.
The two new ones. One would go, I'm assuming, right by the boat ramp there. Yeah. And then the other new one was gonna go, wasn't over near
So
Scortino or?
the discussion was to put one by the swim area, which I'm opposed to, and that's just safety reasons. I wouldn't want to see people jumping off of the dock into the swim area or vice versa. So I would suggest, and this is a suggestion, at the end of Hackberry Road, there is a road that goes down almost like a boat ramp, and we usually put a fish feeder down here. So that would be a good location. I know there's been a lot of discussion as far as putting one up at Scorantino Park. I just don't think we have access to go from Scorantino Park down.
Well, if you put one down by Hackberry Road, is that gonna be more for the use of
It's
everyone in the city? It's gonna fall more towards residents, I would think.
It's the one on the very south end down by Graham's mom's place is terrible, I believe. If I remember right, it's
Yes.
really bad. And then when I was younger, there's a on the west side, on right by where you were at, but over west a little bit on the that's go to the left a little bit. Yep, right there. There's a road. There used to be a dock there,
Right.
and it was there forever. And that was one of the most utilized docks
That's the one we fished off of.
there was. And there's already an access road right there.
We got trash cans there now.
Yeah.
I think that would be probably a better location for the second one, just because I know when I go out there, a lot of times I'm rarely on that side of the lake. I'm
Yeah.
mostly on this side of
A
the
lot
lake.
of people don't even know, and a lot of people
Yeah.
get their boats in down there. But I mean, I do think, but I think the one on the west side, and I'm pretty sure that one on the south end is just pretty much gone.
And then I would say,
You have to tell me exactly where it is. I've never seen it.
I'd
That's
say,
the very end of it.
Very end.
Yeah, it's up to, as far as you can go on the road.
I would think one of the existing ones, if they were gonna move it, then take one of the old ones and maybe move it over to Scortino.
Yeah.
Right.
across
The
that
the
road.
problem with Scorantino, like I said, would be access. As far as, you know, it's pretty steep and it's really really rocky. So as far as getting
Is-
people down there,
Is
we-
that path no longer there? There used to be a path from Scorantino Park down to the dock that
You'd
was
have to
there.
build some switchbacks to.
Make
Yeah.
it safe.
So the path that was there is gone because that's the one we always used to swim off of.
Yeah, I don't know.
There was a set of stairs that came down the hill right there.
I honestly,
And then
I
went
think
out
we
to the
would
dock.
be inviting some.
That's fine. Would we, and this is just a question, would we want to seek the advice of the Lake Advisory Board on where they had planned before we make a final decision on these
Well,
two
Doug,
locations?
Question on the one over there. I mean, I've seen a lot of swimming beaches
Mhm.
that do have an anchor dock out there. If we padded one of those old ones and set it out there with a ladder on it, would you have do you think there's a safety
I
issue
would just
with
be.
that?
We would have to have. I think Brad can probably speak to this for insurance purposes. We'd have to have adequate signing for no diving and things like that. Just the water is so shallow right there. If you go out, like the advisory board has asked that we extend the swim ropes out another 20 feet.
Yeah.
Because you walk out to the swim rope now and it's only up to your waist.
I gotta be able to stencil no diving all over the outside of that thing before you put it out
absolutely.
there.
That's
Yeah, you could put signs, you can stencil it, but you gotta monitor it because
Mhm.
people are gonna do
We're gonna
it.
dive off it no matter.
So, I mean, that,
Right.
it would be a safety hazard. I mean, that's what the insurance company's gonna tell you.
I mean, I would agree with those two locations down there, knowing that the one dock is gone and the other one is falling apart.
right. So completely south is the end of the road, you're saying?
Yes.
And then the one right there where we currently have the trash can.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would like us, unless anyone has anything to say about it, to reach out to the Lake Advisory Board via email and tell them where we're planning on putting them, just to see if they have any input.
I believe when we started this process back with the RFP, that was
That was the location.
yeah, they were okay with, you know, switching the old ones for the new ones and
Yes, sir.
that kind of thing. But initially, I think dock replacement was on the bottom of their
Yeah.
wish list. It wasn't at the top. So
No, not at all.
But I know this thing, I know it's by their wish list, but man, I've been reached out to by a bunch of people who just said, you know, we haven't been able to fish in certain spots in
Mhm.
10 years. I mean,
Yep.
but yeah, I'd say just reach out to them and just see if they have any
Yeah.
concerns or. on
No,
the
yeah.
location.
I mean, to get their advice or just to tell them, hey, this is where they're going.
I would like to
Yeah.
suggest that these are the locations that were decided upon originally. This is what we plan on doing. Just ask them if they have any concerns with the locations
Okay.
that were originally decided upon by them and by the commission. But move forward in asking the supplier what it would cost to bring the boat to move those to those locations.
I can do that.
For record purposes,
Yes, ma'am.
how would you describe where you're gonna put those two? Because you're just saying south.
One is gonna be by the main boat ramp. And the other one is going to be, do you have a name for that area where the garbage cans are now?
Right there.
Do you
Okay,
want,
right there.
I mean, I can drive out there. I've done it before when Jeremy was here. He asked for specific location. We can drive out there and get GPS if you want. It'll give you longitude and latitude of the exact spot.
Is there a lot number or anything on this, the GIS map over here?
No, there's, it will be like right in here. There's no lot numbers or anything around it.
By then, Lisa, he can go out and get the
Okay.
GIS stuff.
I just
For
don't want to
you.
write
Yeah.
right there.
Right
Because we
there.
don't have a meeting next Tuesday, we've got one the Tuesday after, so you have to-
Yes, you're correct, Tim.
So, not to drag this on,
Yes, sir.
the guy Doug, he is gonna go ask the Lake Advisory. He's gonna share with them what you just said. What if they say, we don't like that?
I would say any major concerns. I mean,
Yeah, I would advise you to send out an email to them.
my personal thing
Okay.
is,
Just,
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify that, I will probably send an email to Nancy Mays
Yes.
because I can't send an email to all of them. It's like sending each one of you an email that you can't respond to, something
Right.
like that. So I would just send it to her as the president and say,
No,
hey,
I
this
was
is what was
asking if they
discussed.
have any concerns,
Right.
not really. I mean,
Because these are the locations that we all originally agreed upon. These are the locations that they
Where they
agreed
might
upon.
And they were in the most of them were in the RFP that we
Right.
initially put out that they were given. So
Yes.
Right now, it's the best time to get them put in
Mhm.
because the water's down.
Yes.
So, before it
that
starts.
was the only
raining,
other concern
snowing.
from the vendor was if the water's too low and it would sit on the bottom, then they might have to readjust or come back so that the gangplanks aren't sitting in the water when they come back.
Along with that, I will ask one more question. The dock up next to the boat ramp where the water had washed out underneath the concrete overhang
Mhm.
that leads to that, did we ever address that issue?
We have not.
Okay.
I mean, we've looked at it and seen it. I think we could have Jason go out and say, give his expert opinion as far as what could be done or should be done. The fishing area up there where the advisory board was talking about, there is rock under that concrete. It just
Okay.
looks like the big Gabion rock has rolled out from underneath the concrete. So an engineer might have a better perspective as far as like repairs or whether we just take the excavator and push all the rock back up under it. You know, like
So, you're not talking about the broken boat ramp, right?
I don't think that's what they're talking about.
Okay, we're gonna address that too.
No.
That's something that we need to address.
Yeah, that's the boat ramp. This was the concrete sidewalk leading up to the gangway ramps headed out
Okay.
to the docks.
We can look at that, see what we can do.
I think the main thing was the fishing area with the railings that's really undermined.
Good, thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
Under special appearances, Renaudry USA, Michael Clancy will address the commission regarding their services.
Hello. Thanks for having me down. We're Rental Dry USA. We dry out old buildings. We remove the excess moisture and salts out of the foundation of old buildings. We met about a year ago with the county commission and did a full inspection of the courthouse. They have a wet foundation. We revisited with the commission last month. They're looking at moving forward. potentially drying out the courthouse. And while I was over there, they mentioned that you guys have a particularly wet building in the Memorial Hall. That it's got strong, musty, damp odors, and that there's corrosion and erosion occurring in the foundation. So we just wanted to make sure you guys knew who we were and extend the offer to do a free inspection of the Memorial Hall. And we take photographic measurement, hydrometer readings of all the masonry, any damage we record and put a report together for you guys. And we send an estimate along with it so you guys would know how much it would be if you guys decided to remove all the moisture from the building.
Great.
Okay, great.
And you said
That would be a free estimate?
Yes, sir.
I'm sure we probably got more than one building in this too.
Oh, that's what they said too. So you guys might have several
Could open a
buildings.
satellite location. You guys been doing this for a while?
7 years now in the U.S. Yep. We're in the Anderson County Courthouse and the Woodson County Courthouse. We've been in those buildings for about a year now. They're real happy with the results. We're going to be doing our second presentation in the commission in Lynn County. I think they're going to be putting it in their courthouse. I think Crawford County is going to as well. So, and we're meeting with the Wyandotte officials next week, actually, to go over. Apparently, the courthouse up there is got some issues in the foundation, a few of their other buildings. So we're up in Overland Park. So we're a local company. We moved down from Minnesota. We secured the rights to this technology 7 years ago, and we moved to Kansas City because, first of all, the Chiefs are awesome, and it's right in the middle of the country, and we have the rights to the whole country. So we're expanding out from Kansas City. You guys are next door neighbors. You have a lot of wet buildings and old historical ones. I know it's part of your heritage, and we have a real passion for saving these old buildings, and so want to offer our services to you as well. Yes, we do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions or anything? Or?
since it's a free estimate, would anyone have a problem with asking them next time they're down looking at the courthouse to check out Memorial Auditorium?
Well, we can just schedule an inspection for you guys and go in there and do it.
We can take care of it. We can get him here, and I'll go over with him, or Norm will go over with him, and we can get in there.
Okay.
And that'd be great.
Okay. I'm going to be out of town doing a 1-year inspection at a courthouse, actually right across the way from you guys, Bates County. We've been in there for 3 years now, and they're really pleased with the results. But I'm available Friday, possibly, if you want to do that soon. Otherwise, I'll be in South Dakota all the following week, and then the week after that, I'd be available as well.
Okay.
Jason, this isn't part of the bid package that went out that's due on the 24th, is it? That was just the steps and some other stuff. Okay. Because I know also we were looking with a grant as well, remediating the moisture in the building over there. So I just want to make sure that we don't have a bid out there and then you're coming. Okay.
Sure. I know a lot of the counties, I don't know if it extended to the cities, but a lot of the counties have been using the ARPA money. So that's a possibility too. I don't know if you guys have any of it left. But.
What time are we thinking Friday? What time would be good for you?
About 10:30, 11.
Okay, let's
in
go
the morning.
Let's go 10:30.
Okay.
Just meet here and
just meet here at City Hall.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael. We appreciate you coming in today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. And I'm sorry, what was your name?
Brad Matkin.
Brad? Great. I'll see you over there right here tomorrow, or Friday.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Sir. Have a good evening.
We have nothing under public hearing, so we'll move on to new business. The first item is approval of a bid for demolition, 523 South Heilman, bid number 48-2022.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to award demolition bid number 48-2022 to Dave's Demolition in the amount of $1,800.
Second.
Tim Van Hookey,
Yes.
Edwin Wolhoff,
Yes.
Katie Harrington. Josh Jones,
Yes.
Matthew Wells.
Yes. Item B is the approval of the 2023 holiday schedule.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve the submitted 2023 holiday schedule that was in our agenda packet.
Is this the same as 2022?
Yep.
Yeah, we pretty much the same as last year. We have not adopted the Juneteenth holiday yet, so a lot have, and we've had some.
Banks are not open that day.
Yeah, so it could be a possibility next year, but we'll stay with what we've got. And if, as you can see, Christmas Eve we're taking the 25th off, and Christmas Day will be observed 26th. So figured that'd be a better time than Friday and Monday for the employees.
I'll second the motion.
Josh Jones,
Yes.
Tim Van Hookey.
Yes.
Edwin Wolhoff,
Yes.
Katie Harrington.
Yes.
Matthew Wells.
Yes. Item C is consideration of Jeff Hancock's amended contract.
I don't think that I could see, Bob, there was any changes to what we had looked at before and agreed upon when we agreed to move Jeff into the consultant position and make Brad the interim city manager.
You are exactly right. I made a draft of a contract, and Baker Tilly made some revisions because even in the contract that I had, it indicated that he worked for Baker Tilly.
Yeah.
And Baker Tilly says, you know, we're really the contracting person because that's who we contracted with when our friend Jeff came to start with. And so I looked at what they had resubmitted, and it's fine.
But I mean, the terms,
It's
the,
exactly
the
the same.
fees,
It's
the
exactly-
opt-out, the
yeah.
whole 9 yards.
It's
is
exactly
as
the
what
same.
We approved at the last meeting.
Yes, sir.
All right, then I would move to approve the amended contract from Baker Tilly that our legal advice, Mr. Farmer, has verified has had no changes.
Second.
Katie Harrington,
Yes.
Edwin Wolhoff,
Yes.
Tim Van Hookey.
Yes.
Josh Jones,
Yes.
Matthew Wells.
Yes.
You're terrible.
Item D, Dave Bruner will speak to us about going out for a grant for a picnic table.
You should have put those on the budget workshop.
I know. No kidding. Should have just done it all at once here. So I'm just asking to proceed with the grant. It's the 2023 Champlin Tire and Recycling Incorporated. They currently have a bench and table and safety surfacing grant. This is the same grant that we did on the park mulch. What I'm asking for is we currently have 5 tables at the aquatic center. They over the years they've started the coating starting to flake off, and it's beginning to rust. Just afraid if we keep going with what we're going, somebody's going to get cut or scratched on them. So this grant is to replace the 5 tables, or there'll be 5 8-foot wheelchair accessible picnic tables. The total on the grant is it's a 50-50 match. The total we were looking at is $5,670. So 50 would be $2,335.
I'll make a motion to allow Davey out for this grant opportunity.
Second that.
Tim Van Hookey,
Yes.
Josh Jones,
Yes.
Edwin Woolhoff,
Yes.
Katie Harrington,
Yes.
Matthew Wells.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item E is consideration of the Brick Street policy. I would like to read from the Smart Growth America. As a city, you're going to be making infrastructure and investments and land use decisions. And as any place does, you have limited resources. Smart Growth America Senior Policy Advisor John Robert Smith, also a former small town mayor himself, told us after the recent workshop. The choices that you make about the land use and investment will carry either a price or a return to your local community for decades to come. While the Smart Growth America was here, they said much of the city streets are paved with the original Fort Scott block bricks. Paving bricks from the city's kilns once paved streets all around this country. In the interviews that Smart Growth America did with our local residents, nearly all of them noted that Fort Scott's strong sense of place was identified by these brick streets. The intersections near the historic fort, for which the city is named, is the center of the community's identity, and the city's unaltered brick streets also lend a strong character to our downtown, to our city, and to helping slow car traffic throughout the city. If we look at the 2008 comprehensive plan that the city put together, one of the items that they suggest is to utilize road design guidelines to encourage compliance with posted speed limits and slowing cars down. They also say to adopt a land use regulation with requirements related to street design to enhance the connectivity and to allow for low speeds on these streets. Before you have a street policy that's been presented, and if you'll notice in the first few sentences, it says that this outlines a process for the treatment of the brick streets and streetscapes and other works required. This project may be initiated by the city, a developer, or utility provider, or other agency. This policy establishes the manner by which the city will begin the process of saving the brick streets, but it does not bind the city to fund or otherwise participate in such project. Anyone have any questions about the Brick Street policy?
Well, I've read through it a couple of times now, and I know you and I have talked, and I appreciate you calling me for some clarification on some items. Just really, a few of the concerns that I have is, and don't get me wrong, I like the brick streets. I think, they're good. Matter of fact, we had extra, we could have solved that runway problem out there that we talked about this evening. But with that said, I just want to understand, first of all, and I'd ask is who is the Brick Streets Policy Committee?
The Brick Street Policy Committee was originally myself, our previous city manager, Pete Allen, and Brian Allen from the HPA.
Okay. And I just want to clarify that because when it uses verbiage, and this is a lot of work that was done. Don't think I don't appreciate it, but anytime I see that the Brick Street Policy Committee, I'm like, well, I know we have a street advisory committee. I didn't know, and I know we had an organization called Save Our Brick Streets.
Yes.
That people are passionate about, but I didn't know we'd actually had a Brick Street Policy Committee. So as I read through this thing here, and the statement at the top spells it out. Right now, we have not set aside funding, or we've had discussions, and in plans, we've looked at how brick streets have to be repaired. In other words, if you pull them up, you got to get the concrete down. Everything's got to be right. They got to be flipped. They got to be turned. And you're right. I mean, right now, to the levels of some of the things that are in here, and thank you for sending this in a version where I could read it as well. It's kind of a flow chart of what applies to what street. I think it's probably, in my opinion, some of it's ambitious. I don't get me wrong, I agree with you completely. If a contractor comes in here, and I'm not going to name any contractors' names, and rips up the brick streets, they ought to be held accountable to putting them back the way they were. Or if they don't have the means, the wherewithal, the knowledge how to do that, to pay to have those put back the way they need to be. But I guess my biggest concern, unless we look at going forward, instead of making this a policy now, if we realize we can budget it, is where we're talking if the project scope is greater than 35% disturbance of the road surface per block, the block shall be restored with brick pavers. And if the project scope is equal to or less than 35% disturbance of the road surface per block, and the street is identified in the Save Our Brick Streets program, of which I don't think is an actual city-sponsored program. It's a group of private folks.
Well, that would fall under the classification of, if you'll look in 4.2, brick under asphalt streets, there will be, we will task our street advisory board with identifying what streets will be listed within the historic streets, which will be our historic downtown area, our special character streets, and then the Save Our Brick Street programs will be streets that are brick under asphalt that citizens wish to have restored at some time.
Okay.
And again, keep in mind, this policy does not bind us to any funding. This is simply a policy that gives us a roadmap moving forward on how we're going to address the brick streets, on what we're going to do on the brick streets.
So if it's not bound by funding,
How
how
do we
can we
get it
make it a
done?
how can we make it a policy? How can we make it a policy if it's not bound by funding? Because where's the money come from to do it the way that the policy says?
Well, under the section that you're quoting, that would be sections of road that are disturbed by utility contractors who are coming into our town and tearing up the road. So in the case where they tear up a road and the project scope is greater than 35% of the disturbed road surface per that block, then they would be required to put the bricks back down before the asphalt was put back over them. And then the section 2 there would be if the project scope is equal to or less than 35% of the disturbed road surface, then they would be required to restore that section of road with bricks from curb to curb. Now, if you look on the next page, it lays out a diagram of what that would entail. And this is an area where a utility contractor has come in and torn up the street to do utility work underneath the street. So in that area where they've torn up the street, they would be required to restore that street with bricks if it is one of the streets that falls into those classifications that the street advisory board will lay out for us.
But some of those streets may not right now fall into them because it's stated in here that if it's a brick street that's covered with asphalt, let's say that brick street right now is 30 to 35 miles an hour. If you strip the asphalt off of it, now you're changing the speed limit on the street back down to 25, and we are reconfiguring the actual speed limit within our city limits because we stripped that down, put concrete down, flipped bricks over, and then changed the sign in that neighborhood or on that street to 25 miles an hour.
But that's not what the policy says. The policy says that if it's a street like that has a speed limit of 35 miles an hour, has a VSP vehicle per day of over 3,000, then that street should not be considered
But you said
for
a
even
citizen,
being saved.
a citizen could pick a street
Yeah.
if they want to designate it for brick.
But it can't be a street that falls outside of this policy.
But on page 5, it says the brick streets need to be set with a maximum speed of 25 miles per hour. The nature of the brick streets will help enforce the speed limit. So if you've stripped the asphalt off of a street that right now is 30 miles an hour, then you're going to have to change the speed limit on that street to 25, correct? Because it would now be a brick one.
If you were to have a street that falls outside of this policy. But this policy clearly dictates that if it's a street right now that's asphalt over brick that has a speed limit of 30 miles an hour and has more than 3,000 vehicles per day traveling on it, is listed as a collector or arterial road street, then it cannot be considered for the brick street policy. It's very clear if you read through in section 4 which streets fall within the policy and which streets fall outside the policy. And that's the great thing about this policy, is it helps us to identify what streets we could restore and what streets we should not even consider restoring. Streets that fall outside the purview of this policy are streets that we should not even consider saving. So even if a citizen was to suggest that street, then we could look to this policy and say, the policy that we adopted as a city has already stated that that road that you're wanting us to return back to brick falls outside the purview of this policy, and it's not considered a city street that would be a good street to turn back into brick. So it does exactly what you're wanting in this policy.
But it says under here, 4.2, streets that are known to have brick under asphalt are classified as brick under asphalt, and brick paving surface should be preserved under certain conditions.
Correct.
And then you go into the criteria.
Correct.
But are you saying then if you have to do anything on that street where you've removed the asphalt and the brick is now exposed, that we're going to try and make that whole
that's
length of the street
the
brick?
policy says that if these criteria are met, then that's not a street that we're going to consider to try to save.
And it also references in here something called a street of character.
Mhm.
And who determines which street is a street of character and which
Again,
one is not a street of character?
according to the policy, we would task our street advisory board with making those decisions.
And they would have to make the recommendations to the commission.
And then we would vote on
Now,
it.
does this in any way involve any type of plan whatsoever that if you're looking at asphalting an existing brick street that's not in the historic district, reaching out to the citizens that live on that street or sending them a certified letter or whatever for that approval ahead of time?
No, there's nothing in here for that.
Okay. Because I had heard a rumor.
Well, that was part of a previous.
Well, I know it was
plan
part of
that
the
was
previous,
presented.
but a third party raised that to me
Okay.
again while we were discussing this.
Yeah, no, everything that is in this policy is very clear, it's very straightforward, and what it does is give us, like I said, a roadmap moving forward on a policy that we can look to for guidance on what we're going to do with our brick streets.
Okay, so if we put the policy in place, but we don't have the funding to do it, and somebody does work, then then whoever does it is out of policy. Whoever makes that fix for now is out of policy, right?
It depends on which road you're talking about and where it falls in this policy.
Yeah.
That's what this flow chart helps identify, and that's what the policy helps identify. You're using roads that fall outside the purview of this policy.
What can we call it then? Like recommended procedures for all repair of brick streets as opposed to policy? Because to me, just in my opinion, if you're going to have a policy for the city and you're going to put these type of things in here, then there has to be budgeted funds in there or resources to actually do that work.
But we're not doing work under this policy.
Then why do we have to have a policy for us?
This gives us a roadmap moving forward on what we're going to do with our brick streets. Do we continue to allow contractors to come into town, tear the bricks up, leave them on the side of the road, throw
No.
gravel in and drive off, which is what they've been doing?
No, and I agree with that.
Do we allow them to dump concrete in the road?
I think the main thing.
Do we allow them to patch with asphalt?
Go ahead. Go back for hearing you right is comes in, does a utility cut,
Mhm.
and if it's over 35%, under 35%, you want them to go curb to curb. Right now they're asphalt, they're
Yeah.
concrete, and so theoretically their bid would be higher. Utility cut or something, it would charge the city more to lay that back. I'm assuming.
We would have to look at that on a case by
Yeah.
case study if they're doing the work.
Yes.
But the majority of the utility cuts that have been taking place that have caused this damage are not at cost to the city.
Yeah, but
They
case
are
by case
companies
is not
coming in
policy.
here running their utilities, tearing up our streets. And because we have no policy, we have allowed this to continue. And so you can drive around town and there's at least 5 different locations that I can show you right now where somebody has done this within the last 6 months, left the bricks piled on the corner of the street and just dumped gravel in and driven off.
So your contention is that we need this policy in order to force those contractors to uphold the repair of the streets that they're damaging.
Yes.
And is it enforceable with what?
If it's a policy, it's enforceable by the city.
And the penalty?
If they were to not do this according to our rules,
Yeah.
then we wouldn't allow them to do work in our town again.
Can
And I mean, I'm assuming, I don't know, theoretically.
can we do that?
If you could,
We don't have them.
you could tackle their insurance. I mean, you could do an insurance claim on them or whatever.
See, I would rather have something like this. We know there was a large internet company that was here in town that did a lot of work, and this was an issue. Maybe we weren't proactive in training them on what they needed to do, and being able to provide any contractor with required process and procedures for replacement of bricks. And if you don't do it, make them sign it. And if you don't do it, it's X number amount of money, or we will bill you for fixing it ourselves or whatever. But to me, Matthew, I want to work with you to try to save the big streets. I think this has teeth, but I think the teeth are in the back and not up front where they need to be from the standpoint of clarity and specification. Because if this is our policy, you would think that the contractor would be able to read through it. And it's a lot of work and it's good stuff, but it took me 3 times to read through it, and you and I talking with questions to try and understand it. I think it needs to be more focused on that contracting side. And then down the road, I think that when we can budget it, I would actually like to look at a brick street crew of a couple of people or 2 or 3 people that were out doing and repairing the stuff that needs to be repaired to preserve the streets.
Well, see, that would be something.
Did you read
other
through this,
than
Bob?
policy.
You didn't get a copy of it? Okay. I mean, that's my opinion. I'm.
So can we have, first of all, is it legal for us to enforce a policy like this? And can we have you look at the policy and make it something that is actually enforceable?
Well, I think that I would have to agree with Commissioner Van Hookey. It's more of a contractual, that's where the teeth would be. In other words, if you're going to do work, whatever, you are going to, you've got to come in here and get approval, you've got to get a permit, and
you're trying to apply something to this policy that has worked in several other cities. A policy of this scope is currently in place in 16 different municipalities throughout our country. It is effective and it works. This does not deal with
I
the
understand what you're
funding
saying. Do you know how many
aspects. It
municipalities
does.
there are in this country? There's
Oh, yeah.
thousands.
Yeah, but they
so
don't all,
you just said there's 16.
where a policy just like this is already in force and works. And it won't work for every city because not every city has the historic brick streets that we have.
But how is a contractor that's coming into town supposed to know that we have this policy?
That's a whole nother kettle of fish. That's a codes aspect. That is codes that we need to pass. That is codes enforcement. That is licensing. That is a whole nother thing that we need to deal with at another time.
Yeah,
This is just a policy on the fact that we want to try to save our brick streets. Read
Understood.
through this. That's why I gave it to everybody 4 weeks ago, so that you had 4 weeks to look through it, ask me the questions that you're asking tonight. We could have already dealt with this before this evening. I was under the impression, having given this to you a month ago and already called and talked to you about it, that you had read through this policy, understood the policy, and were good with it. Otherwise, you would have asked me these questions.
I said I
beforehand.
read it and I understood it. I didn't say I completely agreed with it.
I'm not asking for complete agreement.
But I also understand as well that the people that put us in these seats expect us to ask these questions in public as well.
Then we could have had a work session.
So, what I would ask, unless anyone else has input, and since Bob has not had a chance to look at it, I'm happy to give him my copy or a clean copy and table this. I mean, because we're not in here voting on an ordinance tonight or anything.
No, and it's not an ordinance, it's simply a policy.
Yeah, it's a policy, exactly, which.
This is a policy based on
The input of the citizens,
Do you have
on
it?
the input of the street advisory board.
He's got his own copy.
She just gave it to me.
No, and that's good, and I appreciate the discussion, and like I said, don't think I didn't appreciate the effort that went into it, but I think we owe it to our constituents to ask each other these questions, not necessarily privately, but.
Matthew,
but
did you get
publicly
to
as
see
well.
the video that the high school students put together for their streets? Did you get any?
I
input
have
from
not
them?
seen that video yet. I was interviewed with them before they put the video together, and I presented them a copy of this Brick Street policy. Make their video. I provided them a lot of my research and information backing it up because they too are doing it.
because it's not
Just about saving our brick streets. It's about
saving our citizens
money. It's
about establishing the character of our town. It's about following through on the Smart Growth America.
I know you're big on Smart Growth America and what they presented to our community.
Pieces of it.
One of their desires for us to be a thriving, sustainable community is to save these big streets. They've specified that that's something that we need to do in order to be the city that we want to be. Our comprehensive plan lays it out. I'm fine if you want to table this and let Bob look it over.
Well, I mean, if we can vote on it as a policy, but the way it sits right now, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not really enforceable.
That's correct. I mean, Matthew is right. It's just a guide.
It's just
Yeah,
a
I mean,
roadmap.
no policy is really enforceable without the right staff.
Yeah. And unless it becomes an
And, I
ordinance.
mean, that's why I like it's a policy, not an ordinance. I mean, it gives leeway. I do think we need, I mean, you can drive down any brick street and see utility cuts. You can see dipping in streets from lack of proper putting it back. I mean, that's just, we gotta have something, in the long term. I mean, we've thrown away thousands and thousands of bricks too.
And one of the things that this policy does ask for is that we start palleting these things up. It's saving them. We ask the contractors to pallet them up, save them so that we can use them. But we've thrown away hundreds of thousands of dollars in bricks and just dumped them out of the city dump because we have no policy in place to protect them or to give us a roadmap or guidance on what we're supposed to do, guidance on how we're supposed to do any of this.
Yeah, and we're gonna have to be able to communicate that as well, though, because if a contractor goes up and tears out several square yards of brick, you know, does he bring the pallet? Do we provide the pallet? Does he
And
have
if you'll refer to the policy, it clearly states what should be done. It clearly states where they're supposed to go, who they're supposed to contact, where they get the pallet, where they're supposed to deliver the pallet back to, the address of the place where they're supposed to deliver it to, and the individual that they're supposed to contact. That's all laid out in the policy.
Well, I mean, if someone wants to make a motion to vote on the policy tonight the way it is, or wait until Bob's at least taking a quick, he might have some helpful suggestions on how to enforce it.
I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say just have Bob check over his, there's not, I mean.
No
like I said,
problem.
It's a policy. So
Right.
we'll
That's why I
much
say
better.
I understand. It's just a guide.
Yeah.
And if I'm not going to say that I can improve it, if I can though.
Oh, if you can,
I'll
please.
pass
Yes,
that
sir.
along to you.
Yes, sir.
We could outsource it somewhere.
Jeez.
No, but yeah, you can tell you a lot of work's been done in this. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
I like it.
I'd like, sorry, I won't interrupt you. I'd like to hear from Brad on what your thoughts are on this and how do we get the city crew directed to do the stuff that this dictates that we do, and then how do we enforce it with the contractors, and what are your thoughts?
We've got to clean a lot of our own dirty laundry because a lot of those utility cuts you're talking about are ours.
Yes, they are.
And you know, we don't have the brick crew like we did 25 years ago, 30 years ago. So, you know, let's just say the water distribution group, a lot of these utility cuts are those guys doing it, but they're fighting water leaks every single day. So they don't have time to go back and fix somebody's previous leak.
No, and you
so
bring,
I mean it's something that we have to abide by also. Yeah, I think it'd be a big training curve for a contractor to come in and do what some of that's saying to do. But
I will say
if it's a
this.
policy, I mean, we have to look at it.
We at some point also dictate, I mean, it's our town.
Mhm.
So we have to dictate to
Exactly.
contractors, this is, I mean, either do it or don't, don't come here. I mean,
And they have to come get a permit. They have to do what they're telling us they're going to do. Plus, they have to be inspected afterwards. I mean, that just
do we have, on our permits, do we have a checklist? Like if I go say, Brad, pull a permit over here so I can see Norm inspected on this date for this reason. I mean, do they have like a worksheet we talked about? That way we tell what day they visited, what they looked at that day.
on demos they do now.
I mean,
Yes.
I would think on anything they would do just
Mhm.
for one, legal reasons. But I would paper trail.
They have a form they fill out with the permit that says how much it is and how much work you're going to do and things like that. We've got some work that we need to do to clean that
Yeah,
up
I'm on that
also.
page right now. We don't have that communication to contractors might be coming in. Hell, we don't even have that communication to the city guys that are pulling up water lines and stuff.
So are we good pushing this off to the next meeting?
No, that's up to you guys. Yeah.
I'm good with it. I mean,
Edwin, did I answer? I'm sorry. Did I answer? Okay.
but again, I do want to, applaud the amount of effort that went into this. But since the brick streets are so important, let's make sure we make it something that's workable and enforceable.
I agree 100% on that.
As opposed to, to me, if I'm reading that thing, I'm like going, I don't know, did we do 35% or we do less than 30? And if I'm doing a lot of work, I'm going to say, dude, we are absolutely well under 35%.
Right.
Yeah, that's
I
where
mean,
code
I'd say
comes
if
in.
anyone has any suggestions for Matthew to tweak it or whatever, I mean, reach out with the next
Well,
one.
I've given him this at the last meeting.
Yes, sir.
And then we had some questions and we had a conversation. He addressed them and but then I had a few more questions. So I'm fine with next meeting.
When was the last count done on our brick streets?
I have a comprehensive layout on the brick streets that we have, brick under asphalt streets. I've got all those laid out in an Excel program that Brad has a copy of.
But when was the last car count on our brick streets?
We have not done one of those yet that I
So-
know of.
That's a very good point.
How do you
'cause when
know
I
that you
read
do not
that's
have
exactly
under
right.
3,000 vehicles per
Mhm.
year driving?
And where does
Because some of those on those days of school,
Mm-hmm.
there is quite a few kids going, and I'm
Oh, yes,
I'm just trying to come up. How do you know that they're under more than 3,000? That's what I'm
What
asking.
I'm trying to
When's the last
understand
count?
is,
Oh, no,
is
I'm not
3,000 some
basing-
type of Department of Transportation standard?
That is something that I got from Williamson, North Carolina, and their brick street policy. They actually use a higher count. They used 4,500, but that would make every street in our city worth saving, which I do not think is viable considering the truck travel that we have on some of these streets. Like personally, I don't think it's viable for us to try to restore 6th Street, for instance, which is a brick under asphalt street, because of the amount of travel that goes up and down 6th Street. It's one of the main thoroughfares. So I base this on what KDOT provided to me as our last vehicle per daily count on our collector and arterial roads, which are streets like Horton would not be viable. Again, it has brick under asphalt, but it's not a viable street for us to turn back into a brick street. 6th Street, probably not a viable street to turn back into that. Broadway is one that we should probably consider with the amount of traffic that it has on it, is not viable to return back to a brick street. And again, this policy, it helps lay those out. So those streets, now we have a path moving forward to say, okay, so we're not going to worry about trying to save 6th Street as a brick street because there's too much traffic, too heavy a traffic on it.
What
And
about
that's what the policy helps lay out. Which streets we might want to save and which streets we're going to right now say, no, these streets are not worth it. If we do work on these streets, let's save the brick. For instance, like Wall Street is brick under asphalt. Wall Street is definitely not one where we would ever consider making a brick street again. But we could salvage the bricks when KDOT comes in and starts tearing up that road and save those bricks to repair our other streets, because there are hundreds of thousands of bricks underneath that all the way out to the edge of town.
but Wall Street's one because of the truck travel, the dump trucks, the semi-trailers. We shouldn't consider saving those kind of streets. The streets that we want to consider saving are downtown streets, the historic streets, streets like Burke Street, streets in our historic homes districts. Those would be the streets, and again, that's laid out in this policy, that we would want to consider at some point restoring back. But if we don't have a policy to lead us into the future on these brick streets, then we're going to continue to kick the can down the road and allow the brick streets to fall apart. I have so many people in this town tell me how beautiful our brick streets were up through the 60s. I have so many people tell me that up till 2001, we still had one guy who went out and worked on the brick streets all the time. In the 90s, we had a brick street crew that went around and raised all these potholes and helped keep our brick streets really nice. What we haven't done in the last 20 years is done anything to help preserve what we have, which is a blessing to our town from a tax-paying standpoint, because the new numbers that I got from the road repairs that they were doing up in Columbia, Missouri, brick streets are the least expensive streets to install now because of the prices and the increase in asphalt and the increases in everything else. Brick streets are now the least expensive, longest lasting, best return on investment streets that you can have, especially like us if you have your own pavers. That puts us in a position that most cities can't be in because the cost is in purchasing the pavers. After that, low cost on repair, low cost on maintenance compared to longevity, and low cost on relaying the bricks now because the price of concrete has gone up and the price of asphalt has skyrocketed. It is now more cost effective for us as a body to save these brick streets than to do anything else with them, because it will cost our taxpayers almost twice as much to do a concrete road and almost 3 times as much, according to the reports that I just got from the work that they did up in Columbia,
Are
Missouri.
you adding labor into those
I'm
numbers?
including labor and everything.
Because, I mean, you're talking about flipping bricks, you're talking about still having to put concrete down if you're going to actually repair it and do it according to the specifications that the city has. It's
Right.
not just, you're not just going out and scattering bricks around.
Oh, no.
There's a process that's very labor intensive.
Yes.
It still involves concrete to
Yes.
be applied. There's curb considerations
Mm-hmm.
and infrastructure there as well. So, and then
if
you're
you-
saying in a case like from 3rd Street to 10th Street on Wilson,
Mhm.
what would you do with that street?
For right now, I would hire a brick street crew that would go through and fix all the potholes and make that a viable street of travel for the future until we have the funding or we can apply for the grants to pull up the bricks and repair the road the right way.
Do we have the funding for that crew?
Do
And
we
our,
have anybody on the crew that has the knowledge to?
Yeah. See, I go up and down from 3rd Street
Mm-hmm.
to 10th Street every day off of Wilson coming up. And it's asphalt over brick. It's a very steep hill that runs down by where the 3rd Street
Yes, sir.
manhole issue was. And I've just boggles my mind to think about to pull all that up and put concrete down and put the bricks back down again, what that would cost as opposed to asphalting that street. I just don't think we have
Yeah,
enough
well,
money.
but see, yeah, if you want to asphalt that street, it's going to cost you 3 times as much in initial outlay because of the price of asphalt right now. And then within 7-10 years, you've got to rehab that asphalt. And then within 15 years, you got to mill and overlay it. So your return on investment is lost within 30 years on an asphalt road. We have already seen these brick streets last over 100 years. And I have reports of brick streets lasting over 500 years in other countries.
How long would it take to do one block of bricks? I'm talking pulling them up, concreting them, putting them back down, flipping them.
with an inexperienced crew.
I mean,
So-
I'm sure that we can search for bids in other towns and just see what they've been bidding.
Right. That's I'm just basing the information off of a city
See, to
that
me, the most
has
important thing
recently done it.
is we've got certain streets, the historic district, absolutely. We got to do everything we can to save the brick. Burke Street's another great example. There's a few more that come to mind.
Right.
But
I don't know, staff, I would love to see a bid just somewhere
of what it would cost to do one block.
There has to be someone out there bidding it. If
Rip
we
it
can't
up.
find one, then
Well, like I said,
Put the base layer
numbers
down, the concrete, and then flip them
pulled
over.
from Rockford, Illinois, who did one, from
What-
Wilmington, North Carolina, who did one, and then from Columbia, Missouri, and all
Three of those cities show that redoing the Brick Street was cheaper than doing it in asphalt
This-
or concrete.
What
right
year?
now.
This is what I would do is take First Street between National and Main and get two bids or get one bid of tearing it up, concreting it, throw your AB3 sand down, put your bricks back, sand it, go. And your labor. You got to have your labor in there because there's your intensity part. Versus filling it up with concrete and just making a concrete road and do a cost analysis for that. That will tell you if you're saving money, if you're not saving money. And to answer your question, Ed, when I heard you say experience or this crew, we don't have the crew right now. We do have some guys on our staff that were here back in the glory days that know how to put bricks in. And we have some young guys that know how to put bricks in. It's a training process, but it's also an art. But the big thing, it's labor intensive. It really is. And you can't do it when it's really, really cold because you're concrete. You can't really do it when it's really, really hot because you can't put people on their hands and knees on bricks all day long. So it's a time sensitive type deal, and plus it's labor intensive. But it can be done. I mean, if that's where we want to go. But I think we need to do a cost analysis of if you want to do a whole block versus doing something different. If you're just doing potholes, that's not that big a deal.
Or even if you're just doing
A quarter of a street.
repairing cuts that somebody's coming in.
Yeah, doing a quarter of a street, quarter of a block, that might not be too bad. I mean, there's one right over here by the old fire department that 1990, it was about a quarter of that block was done. It took a while, but it still looks good. So, I mean, they'll hold up as long as you do it right. We didn't put concrete underneath it. But that's a side note.
But yeah, if
Yeah.
and I know we've gone way probably too far with this, in my opinion, at this point. I mean, we're going to let Bob take a look at it to see if it's something enforceable that can be done. And as far as a policy goes or a procedure and how we can communicate it out to, the contractors, whoever's coming in here. But it's nice we kind of delved a little bit into the long-term discussion of what we want to do as well.
Right.
And the feasibility of it. And no, I'm fine with that.
And again, like Bob said, or our city attorney is
Saying.
this is simply a policy. It's a roadmap moving forward where we're making a decision that we want to be a historic
City.
We don't want to be
Historic, if we don't want to have the national park, then if you want to spend 3 times as much asphalt in all the brick streets, be my guest. But it just seems like a huge waste of taxpayers' money.
Well,
feel
let's see what Brad comes back with after an estimate on one block of that.
we should. I mean, Salina just did something last year, so we should be able to get
Yeah.
pretty good
Okay,
things. So.
great.
Oh yeah, they need to do a bunch more.
But I'd like to find out though, with what they're doing and how much it's costing them, is their procedure and process of what they're doing.
Baldwin City would be a real good one.
Yeah. Is there something that's going to last for a few years, or are they doing like we're talking about and gutting it all down and putting the AB3 down and the concrete down and the sand?
This policy doesn't say anything about doing that.
No, but the first one that we had looked at prior, at the beginning of last year, so I assumed since it wasn't in there that as far as how the street was going to be done was going to be identical.
No, this again, I would ask you to read this policy for what this policy says. And what I would like this body to consider is what this policy says, not what you've heard before, not anything else other than this policy. Let's not try to add anything to it at this point. Let's just consider this Brick Street policy. It is simply about saving the brick streets that we have the way they are and putting a roadmap moving forward on how we want to.
It says when restoring brick streets, even every effort, like, what number is this? I can't. 42D is in dog. So they can use the same materials. I guess they need to know what materials are underneath those bricks. So they're not just throwing down rock and.
Well, right now, under our
brick.
brick streets is 2 inches of clay stabilized with lime
Where's
on
that
dirt.
How-
Everywhere except for 3 streets that I know of in town.
How are they supposed to know that?
They can find it out by asking me or I can provide that information.
Nobody knew this information until Pete Allen and I and some others started looking into it.
That's what I'm asking. How are the contractors supposed to know
Well, they pull up the, like I said. I
what
have
they're
a
supposed to
list.
put down?
Yeah, we have a list.
Well, when they come in to get their permit, they could have they could have a guidelines.
So again, I asked you just to read this policy. And
I did.
What this policy,
See, and
this is all I'm wanting to pass, is this policy.
see,
I'm not wanting to
say we have to
restore every road in town. I'm not wanting to say that we have to restore First Street, that we have to put concrete underneath, that we have to do any of that.
I just figured there'd be something in the policy stating how they need to return it to, what materials. And Brad stated they could get that list. The parameters.
All right, so we're just gonna direct Bob, and we'll table this until next week. We put it on the agenda for next time. Please, Lisa. Thank you for all your help.
What about getting the bid for comparison?
Say again, sir.
About getting the bid for comparison?
Well, again, the bid does not
affect this policy at all.
because I'm not asking
For any funding, I'm not asking for us to pick roads to start restoring. I'm not asking that we put money towards it. I just want us to have a roadmap moving forward that we're gonna decide Fort Scott's brick streets are worth saving.
Sure, but to Tim's point, he kind of wants to compare the cost of, wait, what does it really cost to do 1 block of asphalt versus 1 block of brick?
And if we're wanting to consider that under a capital improvement plan, then that's worth looking at. So, I mean, if we want to do that, I'm all in favor of doing that. I think that's a great idea. I definitely think that we should set some money aside in a capital improvement program to start working on the brick streets. I love that idea, Tim. Thank you for suggesting.
No. What I said was, let's get a comparison on 1 block, doing it either asphalt or concrete, or doing it brick, and doing the brick correctly, as far as what that cost would be, including I think Josh had mentioned, including the labor cost associated with it.
And all I'm saying is
The capital improvement policy, Tim, I think that's a wonderful idea, and I would like us to consider your idea for a capital improvement project of restoring a brick street. But that has nothing, zero, to do with this policy that I'm asking you to consider and to pass.
Or we're tabled till next meeting.
Let's move on to the next
Item on our agenda. Consideration to go out for banking bids. Josh?
Oh, yeah, the county commissioner reached out to me and just said that they were doing this, and so they just gave me what they did, and I thought it'd be a good time to go out for it. Really should be doing it probably every 3 years, or I don't know, so this is kind of what we're talking about when we do a depreciation schedule, something like this. I know it's 3 years down the way, but if we have a master plan schedule, even when we got the bid on this, just put it 3 years down there again to say, we're bidding this out, just so we don't have to search through everything, so I don't know how we do that or what, but I would like to, so I'll make a motion to go out to bids for,
Batteries dying too?
for banking bids.
Somebody just told me.
Second.
I'll try this one.
Katie Harrington,
Yes.
Edwin Wolhoff,
Yes.
Tim Van Hookey,
Yes.
Josh Jones,
Yes.
Matthew Wells.
Yes.
Can I also just ask that if Ben could review, is he still here?
He's gone.
If Ben can review the one we have in place now and just verify it with what we've been receiving, just to make sure it's in line with what the contract says.
And now we'll move on to reports and comments. Brad?
Okay, I won't go through my report that I sent you. Just some of the things that we're working on right now is the boat ramp at the main entrance of the lake. It'd be on the west side of the lake. It's the main entrance. I'd say it's the main boat ramp. Concrete is cracking, not in very good shape. We need to repair it, redo it. Our guys can do it, but just want to let you know about it and also where the money's going to come from. I know every time we want to take money out of that fund, I need to let you know. So I want to let you know that there will be some funding coming out. We may not get to it for a week or so. Right now the water's down far enough that we can do it and do it safely. So we're going to look into doing that.
Before you move on that will have do you have an estimate so we can vote?
Well, you can't. I don't think you can vote during my comments, can you? Can you make a motion?
Well, yeah. I'm just saying, if you're asking for money to be taken out of that, it can't be taken out unless it was.
I'll give you a
unless it's
quote.
passed.
I'll give you a quote next meeting because I doubt we get it by then.
I just don't want, to start getting in the habit of taking money out without.
Well, that's all I want to make sure you know before we do it.
We appreciate that, because that was first brought up at least in 2020.
What's that?
That concrete.
Oh, okay.
So it's been like that for a
Okay.
while.
Well, it's down low enough we can do it now. So, with the lake, the valve is closed. It's been closed for a few weeks now. We didn't have Rock Creek's got enough water in it. It's a good flow going through. So hopefully we'll get some precipitation to where we don't have to open it back up. A couple projects we're working on is the Gun Park RV project. The crews are starting to work on that, getting some more additional electrical power, 50 amps out there, as well as making the spots bigger, larger, more comfortable areas because of the amount of big trailers and campers that come out there. We feel that's something that's going to really set off Gun Park, and we're kind of excited about that, especially when it gets done. Downtown parking, I talked this morning at the downtown meet and greet about this briefly. I'm working with a couple other individuals on our downtown parking situation. It's been a couple years in the making to where we need to do something with our parking downtown. Businesses are really concerned with the amount of cars that are parking there all day long. I feel we've got a plan set that might help with this and also add on additional parking. I will bring that. Hopefully I'll have a rough draft by the next meeting. I would like to find somebody, and with my Excel expertise, I might be able to do it like with Josh's Excel programs, that I could probably draw something up to give you a rough draft of what it'll look like. But I really feel that it'll help us downtown. But I also want to get the stakeholders involved, and that's the business owners, because they're the ones that's going to be dealing with it every day. So, other than that, really the water leaks, like I said, our water distribution department has really been hit hard with water leaks. That's why Bill was gone. He was late today because he was fighting another water leak. It seems like the lines are popping pretty hard right now. It's probably because one day it's 20 degrees, one day it's 50 degrees, 60 degrees. So we'll continue to do that. Travis is here. Everybody knows Travis Shelton, police chief, has the guy that's jamming right now. He is retiring at the end of February, so we are searching for a new police chief. Yeah, isn't that something? Somebody's calling. So we are looking for a new police chief, and we will miss Travis for sure. I know I give him
Let
a.
him retire. That's what I said.
I tried really hard, but I think he's pretty set. But everything's going good. I can't complain. Things are going good. Staff is working really hard. We've had a few hiccups here and there, but we're working through it, and I appreciate citizens' patience through the transition. But we'll get there one step at a time. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Is the plan on the police chief to have someone hired a few weeks before, or?
I would like, well, it depends because they have to give notice also. So it really depends on where you go with that. We'll have interviews starting next week. Depend on how many interviews we have to have. If we have 2 interviews, first and second interviews, versus if we only have one set of interviews, then depending on if given notice and things like that. So yeah, I would like to have it before Travis leaves, but we'll have to see how it goes. Yeah, whatever. We'll talk tomorrow in my office.
All right, Jason, engineering comments.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, just kind of update. I sent my report last week, I guess, but just really updates for that on the CDBG sewer project. We did get KDHE approval on the portion they needed to approve yesterday, so I sent that for you guys' records. That means basically we can get that out to bid and meet that schedule. I know Carrie Spoon had sent her schedule that needs to be met, so I've got a couple items I need to take care of for that, and then basically get it out to bid. I know from the CIP work session, I had some comments on the wastewater treatment plant, which I think Brad had similar comments. So the only thing that I want to make sure we add, I think the water reuse system needs replaced as well. So I don't know if that was on the list or not, and I've asked Brad to send me that. So if I see stuff that we knew about that's missing, I'll let Brad know.
Now, is the only thing that needed repaired at the Davis lift station that generator? I thought that there were other issues.
There's other issues. So the main problem at the lift station is when it overflows, it has nowhere to go. So the overflow needs to be captured, which means another force main needs to be built, and that's got to be pumped to the plant. So that's kind of I remember how long KDHE gave to get a solution. And once you get a solution, then you have X number of months or years to build that solution. So I'll verify that. And along with that, there was, after the Summers visit to the plant, there was a follow-up. So there's a directive now that we're working through with Scott and our treatment plant folks. So I think that's actually due probably Friday. So there'll be a letter talking about, again, a plan to fix some things. I think they finally pushed forward on the ADM waste going into the lagoon. Now that needs to be considered in your permitting. So we're helping them work through that. What else? The Memorial Hall steps, which we're going to open bids on the 24th. We've had a few questions come through, and I've sent back. So far, so good on that. Last couple items. I'll defer to Brad again to move forward, but there's another grant opportunity. It's probably federal. I sent you something about a BASE 2.0 grant. Which of course, it's got categories, but it's something that we could use to apply for waterline projects.
BASE 2.0.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but you might get withdrawal
You think he's looking at some of that?
If-
There's different things it can be used for, so.
And was that was that kind of like the same as the one we went through for the South Industrial Park RLN the first time?
I think it's different.
Okay.
Similar, but
Because you might get with him also on that, because
Okay.
whatever grant there was for that, they reopened it up, and they're taking the existing bids or grants they've already had
Okay.
to relook at them. I thought he said called that the base 2.0, but I could be wrong.
and maybe that's what they're doing. And with Brad's parking deal, I know you're talking about, drawing something up. If you give me a sketch, I can draw it on an exhibit. I don't care how you give it to me. We'll give it back to you in an exhibit that they can look at. Last thing, I know lots of talk about brick streets, so I understand kind of the confusion with the policy, and then you brought up a point about, well, how are they going to build it? So I've got a specification for the bricks that I can reintroduce that would need to be approved. So once you get down to that point where, okay, this is what we need you to do, but how do you do it? This is how you do it. So that needs to be
Something you can email
considered.
to Brad. You can send that to
Yes.
I knew he was talking about.
So I'll get that out. I'll double check it. It's been looked at by the staff before. I know Bill Lemke looked at it. We made some adjustments. There's things about the size of the pavers that I need to make sure is right because there's more than one size.
4 different sizes.
So I don't think I had that in there, but we got to sort through some of that stuff. But just to try to help keep that thing moving. And that's it, pending any questions.
So, I just asked about the pavilion. It says the final approval move forward. What exactly do you need on that?
I mean, I'll
Oh,
be
it's
honest
not,
with
so
you,
officially it's
and
not
in
out to
my
bid,
notes.
right?
I mean, I'd like to see exactly where that thing is gonna sit. Is it gonna run the full length of the parking lot down there?
So-
It's going to depend on
It's gonna depend
how much
on
it costs.
Yeah. Eventually, that's what they want. Because it'd be tall enough. I mean, it would just be. But I think the best thing to do is go bid by design.
Yes.
And then they can send in a design or whatever. But yeah, that's the plan of the pavilion, is to cover that whole thing. We've talked to a bunch of people, and that's what most people want to see down there.
So I put together a bid document, so it lists out the requirements, and I thought I sent that, but I'll send it again. But I just need to make sure that that's looked at and it makes sense to everybody before we advertise.
Yeah. See, my only concern with down there in the pavilion is.
So we'll
and it
send that back.
Is with it sitting down there. I go down to the farmer's market every Tuesday and every Saturday, take my dogs down there. And if that covers the whole thing, by the time the folks that are putting their product in there, I'm worried about parking for elderly folks that I see at the market
They still want to be
every
able to
weekend.
park, and that was one of the iterations, to save cost, I wanted to add support columns,
Yeah.
but that would kind of conflict with some parking. So basically the final intent I see is, you build those columns outside the parking lot, so you can still park under there, just
No, but
like
I
you do
mean,
today.
underneath there is where the vendors will be set up at. Will there be
But
parking
will they use
there
the whole
still?
thing? I think you'll need one side saved for parking.
Yeah, I think the thing they talk about, if they don't use it, it'd still be available for parking
Yeah.
for handicap or whatever. Because
Yeah.
if it is using it, I mean, let's say you have enough farmers to cover the whole thing, and if you don't have it, where are you going to put them?
So
Yeah.
this, and then there's parking on 12th Street or National. There's
Yeah.
parking all here. There's parking all
But
over there.
if you
Right
go
here, there's parking. There's
if you go
parking
down
here.
to the farmer's market on a
Right.
Saturday morning, it's
It's
packed.
covered.
There
Well,
are a
so
ton
there'd
of
be no
cars.
parking lost by doing this. So
In fact, they'll gain. They're going
I
to
hope
gain
so.
an additional 12. Wasn't that what we figured? 12 stalls and parking.
I don't know about
Well,
that.
it's just going in an existing parking lot, right?
Yes.
Right.
Going in an existing lot, how do you gain 12 stalls?
No, from where they are now.
yeah, for he's
moving
talking about.
it down here.
Oh,
Oh,
we'll move it
location
down there.
wise.
Okay.
With the location that they're in right now, they only have, I think, 13 or whatever places to set up. And then here they're going to have 28.
I think so. And the good thing is if they're not using it and it's raining, sprinkling a little bit, people can still park underneath there if not using it. And then have
Yeah,
the-
I mean, they should be able to, but I mean, like I said, I know most of those folks down there, and they've had some concerns about
The only way they
where
wouldn't be able to
where are our
park is if-
customers going to park.
If the farm market just outgrew it and needed the whole thing, and then that's a whole nother.
It
Because
gets,
there's
gets a
also-
little bigger every year.
Yeah, there's a big parking lot now that we put in over here next, across the street from Hometown. There's the big parking lot over here behind H&H across the street from Sharky's. There's a big parking lot over here. So there actually will be 4 additional parking lots for people to park at that will be less than 100 yards.
I understand. And for you and I, it's easy to get there from our, well, maybe not you with your knee right now, but for some of the folks that are down there, it's those extra feet mean a lot. So maybe we do need to look at possibly marking some additional handicap spaces down there for those folks. Okay, great.
Yeah, so we'll send that back out. So look, there's a schematic showing the location and the way the bid is, you know, if we can't cover the whole length, they were supposed to be able to bid it section to section so that you met your budget. But we'll send that out again.
And then the other thing is the Horton Street, because I know we keep hearing it's turnkey, but it's really.
Yeah, that was a question I had about something that you said a minute ago. So you said that the utilities were supposed to be included in that price, but
So the budget price.
Josh, I read through that line by line, and it says nothing at all about utilities.
It says stormwater be taken into consideration and sewer inlets will be looked at if needed, but it says nothing about water or nothing about.
Which what document are you looking at?
I asked for Wednesday, or
Oh, the contract.
Yeah, the contract.
So that's kind of, yeah, on the design side, that wasn't in our scope, and that's fine.
And I just know the last
But on the
3
budget
years-
side, so the overall project budget included $115,000 for utilities, which includes water and sewer. So that's why we wanted it in the plans. I think the trick is KDOT probably won't participate in that amount.
So when will the plans, I mean, the final plans?
So I want to have plans to you here really soon to look at. It doesn't bid through KDOT until February of '24. So there's a big gap unless we can talk them into bidding it earlier. Like Jeff says, he wants, that's what I thought, but when I gathered that information back up again, because you've got an agreement with KDOT that's
So
got
Wall
some
Street
dates.
and Horton are bidding in 24?
Yeah, I think so.
I thought Horton was 23.
So did I, but I don't think it is. Wall Street's 24, but Horton is also 24.
Well, we've got it down for 23.
Yeah, well, Horton was supposed to be done this year.
That's what we thought, because our plans were going to be done this, January, February.
Right.
So
You're saying they're not even letting bids till?
next year, which may be a good thing.
repairs on that.
Asphalt might be cheaper then.
The road's not gonna last another year.
No, we-
But I got to call KDOT
We need to do some work
and
on
find
that
out
if that's the case.
more information, because I don't have a lot of information from them on that, other than I think I have a project number. That's it.
Can you find that information out
Yeah.
next week? Because if not, we're gonna have to send the guys over there to fix some stuff, because it's not gonna last.
Yeah, I'll find out what we can do on that. Anything else?
So, for the capital improvements, could you say that one more time? I'm sorry, I'm dying. I'm not getting on.
Oh, for the streets?
20 to be bid out in 23.
That's how we had it planned, but KDOT's, when I finally looked at that agreement, it says February of '24. The bid, so they'll be building it that spring, but that means this whole year is still not. And they might have, I don't know what kind of flexibility they have on that program, so I'll find out. Because if your funds are available, then that might help. We can say, hey, we're ready to bid sooner. But that's all I got.
Yeah, anything you can do to help us figure out the a way to expedite that one
Yeah.
as quickly as possible, would be greatly appreciated.
Will do.
And now we'll have a time for commissioner comments. Josh Jones, do you want to go first?
Yeah, it's got a couple things real quick. The National Street School sign, right?
I've got a couple photos on my desk. I will scan those and send them to each of you. I think we ought to get a couple more bids though. The signs right now are not what I would say together. I would think we'd want one that once you drive past it shows your speed, plus it has a speed sign on top of it. I'm going to look some more and see if we can find some that are all together, and then I'll get a quote and send it to you by the end of this week. I'll scan them and send them to your email.
Talk about that. The only other thing is, I've been reached out to by a few people that, like, I don't know if our IT, seems like we've been struggling with getting our IT over here when needed, so I don't know if it's something we need to look at rebidding out or what. I don't know what you guys think. I don't know if you guys heard any things. I know getting cameras have been, mic systems, we've been talking about mic systems for 2 years now. I still don't think we've gotten a bid on that. So I don't know if that's something we need to look at or possibly going out for, I don't know if they're just too busy or what. I don't know if that's something we need to look at.
Well, I know that they were over here last week and had a meeting, Brad, and they, I think, did they address all of the issues that you currently had?
Well, I mean, we addressed some of them, yes. I mean, the cameras, the microphones. We had a gentleman come in, and he gave us a quote. I talked to Shane this morning. He wants me to go ahead and have him come in and look at the system again and present to you about that.
So we have a quote on them? Have we seen the
I
quote
think
yet?
no, I don't know if I've seen the quote, but he says he's got.
Yeah,
the gentleman has a quote.
Yeah, Shane,
It's a verbal.
The IT people originally got us a quote. I believe it was 12,000 and something.
That's a different company.
Yes, but he could not find a second company to bid on what we were asking for, so he never presented it to us at that point.
No one to bid on mic systems for municipality or government entity?
At that time, that was the only company that was willing to put in a bid.
The one that I talked to in Kansas City at a convention did Gerard's, Pittsburgh's, and some other areas, and he's actually came here. He's talked to Jimmy, and I'll reach out to him tomorrow to see what the quote is, and then I'll have him come present.
We've been talking about these mics for.
Yeah.
These mics are, I don't know how old they are. I think they're the school. It's originally 15 years old. So
Yeah.
I know I get tired of getting messages every meeting
Yes,
about.
yes.
So if we could at least have something back, maybe next meeting.
I can have him come visit, hopefully by next meeting.
I don't know if there's. I just find it hard to believe that you can't get a bid or a quote for. I mean, every municipality, every government uses these things anymore. So
I used to have a contact for Ford AV out of Tulsa. I could reach out to them if we're needing a second bid. I mean, I don't know if they do this type of thing, but they did another project for me that.
Okay.
So
that'd be
reach
good.
out to them if you want to
Yeah, let me know contact or whatever.
Yeah. So we have the one. If we can, yes, get these other two, then we can vote on it and make a decision on what we want to do. What was the other on the IT thing? What was the other one? The cameras?
yeah,
Okay.
I know. I think we finally got cameras, but I don't think they're the ones we. We talked about it for Gun Park, which I think we finally got cameras, but not the ones we've. Not the ones we've.
Yeah, we've got some cameras down there. They're not, the high quality cameras. They're something that I sent the guys after because we wanted to get them up.
I know we've been talking about cameras, golf course, Gun Park for over a year now, so I don't know.
Where'd we get the ones at the pavilion?
They did bring those. Jimmy had those, and he brought those that day. That they've done really, really good.
And I believe, Josh, they have a CIP Did they ever get you a copy of that, Brad?
Pardon me? Yes, I got it.
CIP. Yes.
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it this morning.
Have Brad get you a copy of that, because they lay out. They're supposed to have laid out a 3, a 5, and a 10-year plan on how to get everything resolved with the issues that we're dealing with.
So do you want me to go? You want me to go search, or I will? I mean, whatever you want me to do.
If you think we're getting adequate service, then I wouldn't. If you think we're not getting adequate service, then I would suggest going out for other people to do that. I would tell Travis happy retirement, but I'm like Brad, I'm refusing to. So that's all I got.
All right. Commissioner Van Hookey?
Yeah, so I only got a few things. One of them I brought up was the pavilion talking about. And again, I'm getting more questions on, I think last meeting we talked about actually maybe putting some little flags or staking out the footprint of the actual splash pad, where it's going to go, so that we can see it, because we're going to have to vote on it. And I'd like to be able for people to see it now and understand the size of it, where it's going to be. I was in a good old days meeting last night too, and I know that you're going to call their chairman back with his concern he had, because those dates that I think installation and stuff are starting is right there, right around that. I don't know how far along they'll be. We're always the second weekend in June, so there's concerns there as well from both the pavilion standpoint and the splash pad standpoint. So if we can get that marked out to get an idea how much green space we're going to have left over there for that type of stuff that's going on that weekend, that would be great.
Before I forget, they finally got the utilities back where the lines are, so had to change a little bit. So there's an electric line running through there, so they should have it marked out, I'd say, in the next week.
That
So
would be
before
good, and I think folks in town, because I mean I get a lot of for and a few against, the water usage and all that stuff, and I'm like, I understand that, but I mean, let's just, before we do that, or how it's going to impact the historic district, let's let them stake it out, see what it looks like, and then everybody will know. And then Brad, I was going to ask, a couple weeks ago we approved several unsafe structures on the demo list. Have we had contracts picked up by the successful bidders, and do we know any status on if those have been started yet or not?
I would say those are the ones that voted on last, about 3 weeks ago. They've been started. Yeah, there's 2 or 3 of them been tore down.
Okay, that's great.
I will say, try to piggyback off that real quick, that we need to look at, I know Kevin told me, I think he's talked to Brad, a few of them still have utilities hooked up. He went by there to do 2 or 3 of them gases still. And so I think there's confusion on who takes out, who calls the gas company.
That was all supposed to be the city. I think we put it in the ordinance, and in particular to make sure that the sewer lines and stuff were protected by our folks knowing where they were. Now, no, we don't expect like Norm to be out there with a hot stick pulling bayonet fuses out and stuff like that. That's Evergy.
What we were told is, and it's a timeline deal, and I've talked to I've talked to Kevin mostly about it, is once it's passed and he's able to start, the gas company is backed up 3 weeks. So it's a timeline issue, and he combated that because the meter was already gone and he covered it up with his bucket. But that's what's going on now. Norm and I and Thomas have talked, and we've got a better structure that we're going to follow.
Well, I know last year
better.
or 2 years ago, there was not a very good system of communication in place. And then for a while, we went into this mode where the city was going to take care of it. And really, with the ones that went down the last few months, there didn't seem to be any problem with it. But if Kansas Gas is backed up, I can understand that. But I just want to make sure that, we had also, when we redid the ordinance on there, set those dates, those hard dates out there for picking up the contract, for getting it done.
Sure.
And I just hope, I'm not trying to push anybody, but I hope that with this really nice weather we've had this
They've
week
been doing
as well,
a good job with
good.
it.
That's great.
They've been doing a good job with it.
And then took a load down to the brush dump and was happy to see the new 963K sitting there and wondering what in the heck are we gonna do with that old orange one that's sitting down there? But
Did you get on it and sit on it?
no. As we're getting all this new equipment, though, I'd like to make a suggestion, and it's just a suggestion. You know, I spent many years in the military, and I actually used to operate heavy equipment when I was in civil engineering and the whole 9 yards. No matter what you get into that's military, if you want to take care of it, get some type of daily operator card that requires that whoever's getting in that piece of equipment every day checks the oil, checks the whatever needs to be checked in it, you know, and does that preventative maintenance check so that if we get a nice big piece of equipment or all this capital equipment that we're looking at for next year, pickup trucks, even in the military. If you were the guy taking that truck out that day, you signed it out and you validated that you checked the oil and the tires and the whole 9 yards, because doing that stuff now can maybe keep that stuff running a little bit longer.
Daily
So,
checklist.
yeah, it's just a little sign-out card. It's got instructions on it that says, did you check the oil? Did you check this? Did you check this? By equipment type. But with that, Brad, I appreciate all your updates, too, that you're getting out to the folks in town here. It's greatly appreciated. And I think you're doing a great job.
With that, we found a mistake today that not water related. So let's get that taken care of. But it was a phone related deal to where everybody was calling, and I think Jeff had 10 when he showed up today. He had 10 messages, and I was in my office and I could hear the voicemails. And when people were punching city manager, it was going to his phone, and they were leaving messages, and I wasn't getting them. So I will call those tomorrow and apologize, but we do have that fixed now. So,
but you've also made it available where people can reach out to you via your email.
Yeah.
What's your email address again for everyone?
bmatkin@fscity.org.
Okay, and any citizen can reach out to you on your email.
It's also on our city website.
It's also on the city.
Yeah. 123 South Main, it seems like. So. Yes. Bourbon County cars.
Is that all for you, sir?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Waha?
I have nothing really to add other than to just say thank you to Chief Shelton for all his years of service, and we wish you well in your retirement.
He's not gone yet. He's got like a month left, people. Like he's leaving next week.
Commissioner Harrington?
The Gordon Parks Museum has the MLK Junior celebration starting this Thursday. The Chamber of Coffee will be hosted there at the Gordon Parks Museum at 8 a.m. Everyone is welcome to come.
Yes, and piggyback Monday. Well, sorry,
Josh
the day of
Jones.
giving. Kurt keeps telling me, so I stuck to my head. The day of giving MLK is Monday the 16th. So if you have canned food drive or whatever, take it out there too. So I appreciate
Kids are out of school. It's a good day to volunteer and do something.
Awesome. All right. I only had a couple things, and those would be, again, with all the equipment and everything that we're buying, is there a way, and I know Josh mentioned a little bit about this earlier, that we can start pre-planning for the equipment that we're going to need to buy in the future, and then we could like set up accounts where we can maybe put money away now for a piece of equipment we're going to buy 10, 20 years down the road, so that we're not getting all of these requests popping in all of a sudden and having to come up with the money.
Depreciation schedule?
I mean, the depreciation schedule would help out with that, and then we will know what vehicles are going to be rolling off and start saving ahead for all of those pieces of equipment. Yes. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Maybe we could look into something like that. I mean, again, I think it's very crucial for us to have an asset management software that we can do PM schedules. You know, I know it's different because I come from production where it's you have a piece of equipment, but we also had forklifts. We also have all kinds of things where everything had a barcode on it. Right. And Edwin knows about these things. He works manufacturing. So you go up and you scan it and you know exactly when the last time it was repaired, it was worked on, what was done, what oil filter goes onto it, everything. And I think it's very important that we get to that, and that would help us with what you're talking about. And it also, all you have to do is print them out, and there you go, give it to our insurance, and they have our assets. So it's something we really need to look into, but it's got to be user friendly or it doesn't get done.
Is that something you'll task somebody else in looking for that program, or are you going to look for that program yourself?
I'll have say so in it, but I may delegate that one to somebody that has some knowledge in it.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, that'd be a good
I
one.
could look into it. I could ask some of our maintenance guys. who've
That'd
done
be
it
awesome.
before, and some of our parts
Yep.
stuff.
I just, as we're buying this new equipment now, I mean, I would very much, that's exactly what I would like us to start doing. For instance, the big loader we just bought, I'd like to see a barcode on it, get it tagged, get it in the system now, and every piece of equipment that we on board from here on out, let's start getting it tagged. So
Sure.
if there's a way to expedite that process, that would be awesome as far as
We've got some things we've got to clean up, but the crew we have is working hard
Yes, sir.
at it, and they're getting better every day. I mean, they're doing wonderful. And the maintenance crews we have, they'll do really well with it.
I noticed that quite a few of the alleyways have been getting fresh gravel and stuff. Do you have a list of the alleys that have already been done, or how many we've gotten done?
I will by the end of the week.
By the end of
and
the
I'll
week?
share that with you.
Awesome.
Yeah, we this week's the alleyway week, so yeah.
Okay. It's great to see the guys out there making all the improvements that they're making there.
Sure.
They're really doing a great job. And then based on what Tim and Josh were talking about, what would it cost for us to have a Brick Street crew of a couple guys who could go around and put the bricks back in based on their suggestions?
I think we said around 120. That's with benefits, around 120,000 a year for 3 of them.
All right.
My thought process, and I've talked to Jerry about it, is you have a lead person, somebody that's responsible for this crew, and then you'd have 2 other individuals with that person. And with that, it doesn't have to be from streets, because you have water line cuts, you have wastewater cuts, sewer cuts. So you can go from 3 different avenues on spending the money that way.
And we still have the trailer and all the equipment.
We
from
still
the
have
old-
everything,
We have
yes.
everything we need except the bodies to go out and start doing these repairs.
Yes.
Josh, what were you going to say?
Right about this the other day, and I think you said if we did that, or you're also talking about maybe a water line replacement crew, that's all they did. Or
A dig crew, yes. Yeah, we have to do one or the other, I'd say right now. We're fortunate, we've got a lot of applicants. I mean, we're still getting applicants for everything we post.
I'd say that's
So
our projects or whatever, that's probably something we need to decide if we want a brick crew, or if we hire 2 or 3, is there something, so we just need to kind of rate,
Okay.
because there's water lines too, if we only have, I don't know, so I guess they do both maybe.
if the lead person's a good operator, yeah. They'd have to know, no matter if it's a brick crew or not, they'll have to know how to use equipment, the lead person would. And then dump truck operator.
Do we need to have a meeting to help finalize that decision, or what?
I would say get Ben involved and just say, hey, what does our budget look like this year with everything? And then going forward, and the last thing you want to do is get a crew of 3, you have money this year, but not next year. And so make sure it's reoccurring money we have to spend. And if we're going in-house with a lot of things instead of bidding out, I'm assuming there would be, but I would just get Ben's opinion on what the budget looks like.
You got a trailer for that. Do you have a vehicle to pull that trailer? For a crew of 3, 2 or 3?
We used to always put 3 in there. The low guy was never really comfortable, but hey,
Well,
you
probably
weren't going
not.
that far.
Probably not, but I mean,
you weren't going.
you
that
said
far.
the trailer's there and everything's on
We've
it,
got
but you're gonna
a
have something.
Yeah,
to pull it.
we'll have a truck, and we'll eventually have to buy something else to recoup
Let's get
it.
with Ben and see what he says. But again, we're gonna have to really go through this, I think, and be smart about it and define the scope. of what they're doing and how they integrate with the contractors and the whole 9 yards to get this done.
Well, we've got so much to do.
Yeah.
We won't even touch the contractors for a long time. Hey, we've got our own stuff. Yeah, we need to make we need to make guidelines of, and you give it demo versus cutting into our roads, cutting into our alleyways. This is what you need to do to take care of it, and give it to them during the permits. And that's we got to make sure they come get permits. So,
and that would be the last thing I know that I'd reached out before when Jeff was still helping out with a lot of stuff about what we could do as far as contractors licensing to help move a lot of this forward, because that'll help us know who the contractors are, have them pulling permits because they'll be licensed to work within our city. What do we need to do to move forward on setting up some licensing for our contractors?
Did you receive the all the old fines and licenses and all that? Did you
Yes,
receive
sir.
a copy of that?
Yes, I saw that.
I would just say look through that and see if we need to have a work session on that, or if we just I can make a spreadsheet of some sort, or somebody can, and
I'd be
make
happy
it easier to look at. 'Cause that's pretty tough.
I would be happy to suggest we have a work session whenever everyone's schedules would allow it. I had sent y'all some information based on the contractor's licensing that I was proposing. We had done a bunch of research back at the beginning of last year on what all the surrounding communities were doing for licensing, and I believe all that information would still be available. So we have a tracking on what every city within a 20-mile radius, or actually within 100-some-mile radius.
Somebody here did that?
Yes.
Okay, so it's somewhere here.
Yeah, I myself, I believe Mark McCoy helped on that, and we went and called all the local cities, and we built a spreadsheet basically on what every license and fee structure was within almost every city, reaching all the way out to Joplin, Carthage, and up towards Johnson County.
Any idea what that might have been called?
No, I do remember there were some folks that came in here that were not happy about it though, and I think we never. I think we may have voted on it and voted.
Well,
it down,
no, that was that, and they came in because they were upset about the possibility of us setting up a business license within our town. But on that spreadsheet, the main drive from my point of view was to do. That was at the same.
It was around the same time, yeah.
I hadn't proposed anything on the contractor license. I just had us do all the research at that time, so that we already had all that information.
Yep.
Yep. So, and then I can get everybody a copy of the stuff that I provided to you and Jeff about the contractor's license that I was proposing, and that was based on Joplin, Webb City, Pittsburgh, and what they do locally for their licensing.
Okay.
So, when would be a good time to set up a work session? Does anybody have any suggestions?
Yeah, but not this month.
Would there be the possibility of doing it before one of the meetings in February?
Well, when is the first meeting in February? When's the first Tuesday in February? What day? 7th? There might be a possibility of that.
Is everybody okay with doing a work session on February the 7th at 4:30? Okay. Yes, Jeff.
Brad's doing a great job.
Thank you.
I'm not going to be around very much. I'll just come to council meetings, as you well know. But I provided you some information about some support that I have on evaluations and goal setting. And that gentleman has done 20 or 30 of this process. And so I talked to Bob that can be done executive session, but he has offered, because it's kind of, I mean, I've done them before, but it's kind of my training. So you need to find a time, and it's West Coast, because he's West Coast, so that we can start that process, because, you know, if 3 months comes up and 6 months comes up, and there'll be a goal setting deal. And I sent you an article of ICMA, and I'm really excited about what it can do for you, and I'm really excited about the fact of what Ben's doing. Some of these questions that you have about plugging in numbers and things in the future will be done. And then the only other thing is, anybody going to the City Day in Topeka?
That's 25th. Yeah, that's one.
25th. Are you going there?
Yeah.
Anybody going?
I was gonna try.
The legal director. Yeah, it's the next day, and I think it starts at 2. You're supposed to get together with your legislature beforehand, and then there's a reception, and then it's done. So you can probably do a day, but John Deerdorf, I reached out to John Deerdorf, who's the executive director and the whole city manager, and he's anxious to come down and meet with, you know, the league hasn't been down here. That's great training for everybody.
Yes, sir.
So that's all I had. Okay. So if it's all right with you, I'll shoot for an executive session at one of the upcoming council meetings to work with, or we'll schedule a time to do that goal setting with that gentleman on Teams.
Yes. Should we do that before the meeting or after a meeting?
We could do it before. It'd probably be easier for you. That's why I wanted to stand up, because you.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Work session.
Yep.
So, do you want to shoot for the next meeting?
Can we do that before the next meeting on the 17th? Does anyone have a problem?
24th.
Oh, sorry,
24th.
24th.
And I'll touch base as far as how long it'll take and stuff. But I'm really excited. He's done a lot of these, and they're good. With that goal setting, that'll not only help with your relationship with Brad, but also provide some goal setting.
And I read through that letter, but just to clarify, is there a fee for this?
No.
Okay, just making sure.
No, it's part of what we're paying for.
Well, I read through it and I thought, I don't see a dollar figure anywhere, but let's make sure.
Because I've worked out an arrangement, we're considering it training on my behalf, so it's totally encompassed in the deal. So
Okay.
Would everyone be okay with 4:30 on the 24th?
let me double check that that'll be enough.
I want to interject just a
Yes, sir.
minute. Listening to, obviously, I've never been through this. And if I told Jeff you could do it in executive session, I'm not sure you can. There's nothing secret about goal setting.
No, it's not goal setting. It is goal setting to set the goal standards for the city manager, which is for his performance. For his performance.
So then, would that fall in, since we're discussing him, that should fall in under discussion of non-elected personnel?
Because he's up for a 3-month.
Yeah, as long as that's the limited whatever.
Yeah, correct. But some of those, yes, you're right. It's evaluation. It's limited, and I'll get that clarified. Yeah, it's not just goal setting for the whole city. It's what they have as the goals for their city manager. And Brad will be part of that program engagement as well, as far as his evaluation. Part of this program.
So, will everyone be available 4:30, 24th?
If not, I'll do it by Teams call.
Or we could do it after.
Okay, if you will, double check on the time. Okay.
I just don't want, time moves on, and I just
Yes,
want
sir.
to make sure it gets going.
No, and sooner rather than later on that particular item.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Well, you see, we got a new mayor. He doesn't. He
Well,
doesn't.
I
he
wasn't-
can't turn his neck this far.
I wasn't done yet.
Oh.
Oh, I thought you were
Sorry.
done.
No.
Sorry about that.
Got two more items on my agenda.
Thank you
here.
for trying.
We now will turn to our city attorney. Does he have any comments?
No. No.
Well, I knew
Thank
he
you,
did.
but no.
Okay. And final thing would be an executive session this evening if anyone needs one. No. No, just making the option available. If not, then I will ask Commissioner Van Hooky to.
I move to adjourn.
There we go. All in favor, say aye and rise.
Josh Jones.
Yes.
Tim Van Hooky.
Yes.
Edwin Wolhoff.
Yes.
Katie Harrington. Matthew Wells.
Yes.